Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. And today, we finally got another guest going on. We've got a very special guest joining me today. You've seen him guesting on a ton of Player Profiler podcasts and shows, but of course, you've seen him on the Dynasty Warzone. We've got Memphis Young joining me. We're going to talk trending topics. We're going to get his takes on everything fantasy football. It's going to be a good one. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, how's it going?
What's happening? How do you have this much energy so early?
Maybe because it's 8:30.
Okay. Well, I brought my coffee cup. We talked about this little hustle juice, you know.
Yes. For those you can't quite see from where he's at, but it says
it says hustle juice on them. That's exactly right. That's what we do at Player Profiler. We're out here hustling. We're doing the research. We're getting you ready for everything from your Dynasty rookie drafts, if they haven't went on yet, to best ball, to the news, and everything in between. So I'm excited to be here. You invited me on, and I jumped at the chance.
Yeah, spoiler alert maybe for something later in the show, but I was listening to the game plan this weekend, and your buddy over there with the Warzone was on with Mad Kiwoom, Jerry Sinclair, and they were talking Jelani Woods, and then your name came up as another guy who really likes Jelani Woods, and I was like, you know what? I haven't had Memphis on Wake and Take yet. We had a great Trade Gods episode. I need to bring him on, man, so I'm excited to have you here. Let's just go ahead and dive right into some of the stuff. We'll go. We when I have the guests on, they've heard me yap about all this stuff Monday through Friday, and so when we have a guest, I like to just kind of give them the floor for some of the stuff that's been going on, get some other opinions going on in here. So we'll start with the 49ers wide receiver room. One of the biggest topics right now over the last week has been trading Deebo Samuel or trading Brandon Ayuk, as Brandon Ayuk sitting out of OTAs. They have the contract negotiations going on. Deebo Samuel had requested the trade a couple seasons ago. So where are you at when you're looking at this situation right now?
Brandon Ayuk's going to be a 49er. If you go to Vegas and you look at the odds to win the Super Bowl, they are the second odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl behind the Chiefs. And those odds don't get any better if they give up either one of these guys. Right. They are literally, and with the new rules and the collective bargaining agreement, players can't hold out because they get fined $50,000 a day. So he'll be in camp, he'll play games, not like games, but like actual NFL football games. He'll show up, he'll do his job, and he'll either get franchise tagged or let walk next year. Mm-hmm. And there's still plenty of time to make money. Now, as far as trading Deebo, I think they'd love to be real honest with you. I think they would use another running back, whether it's Elijah Mitchell or someone else, in more of that true running back role. And those hybrid pass catching, they would just do more of that with Christian McCaffrey, because that would also potentially extend the career of Christian McCaffrey. It's kind of how I feel about T. Higgins too. I understand he wants to get paid, but you know what? Take the $21 million franchise tag and then go out and get paid next year. Mm-hmm. You only make yourself more valuable by going out and playing hard. I think they'd love to trade Deebo, but I don't think this either gets extended or resolved until next offseason, just based on the 49ers goals.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that in that regard, and it's probably going to be next season. Technically, both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are already under contract this season, and the 49ers definitely want to try to chase that Super Bowl. And I think I agree with you. They do want to move on from Deebo Samuel. It seems that they, especially with drafting Ricky Pearsall, with drafting Jacob Cowing, they want some of those man-beating wide receivers. And we just haven't seen that from Deebo Samuel, unfortunately, as awesome as he is against mans. He's not necessarily good as a route runner, just more so of a break tackler kind of guy. I could see it kind of developing to be like a Stephon Diggs situation where a team just trades for him, like the Texans, gets him off the 49ers. They eat up that contract, it's like $25 million, and then we find out what happens with him going forward. So I like where you're at. Not much really to add there. So we can go ahead and move on to the OTAs. We're at the OTA season right now. Hype is building for all sorts of players, and I just ask you plainly: are you buying the hype on any player in particular?
No, because I don't get too caught up in the noise. Mm-hmm. I do like what you mentioned him, Jelani Woods. Mm-hmm. someone, and it could be Will Mallory, and it could be, I don't think it's going to be Kylan Granson at this point, but someone in that offense is going to pop from the tight end position. The problem is in Indy, because I heard you mention Jerry and Maddie talking about my love for Jelani Woods. He's an awesome athlete, but there's just so many guys, and you don't know what their role is going to be. There's not, as the Podfather does, cliche alert, too many mouths to feed. It's just, I don't know how they're going to be distributed. I know Michael Pittman's probably going to get 160, 170 targets, and the rest is TBD. So I don't mind you going out and getting Jelani Woods in a dynasty, or taking him as I know Best Ball Mania, one of our sponsors, Underdog, going on right now. So I don't mind you taking a shot on a guy like Jelani Woods at the back end. You put JMO, which is I'm assuming Jameson Williams from the Lions. I think he's starting to get underrated, because when you start ranking the pass catchers, how long before you get to him?
Not long at all.
I mean, Amon Ra, kind of like Pittman, right? He's going to get his 160, 170 targets.
Yep.
I think you're going to see a ton of Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs I'm writing him up, or I guess I'm talking him up for the world famous, in quotations, draft kit this year. So there's a little spoiler. I'm doing Jahmyr. So I'm big on Jahmyr Gibbs, but then that leaves Laporta. But for an offense that throws the ball about 600 times, that's still plenty of targets left over for somebody.
Yep. He
didn't play as a rookie pretty much because of the ACL. Had some flashes last year. It's a make or break year for JMO, but I don't mind it, especially, again, if you're in Best Ball Mania right now. What about you? What about you? Who are you buying into?
It's going to be those two players, Jelani Woods and Jameson Williams. I unfortunately had been rostering Jelani Woods all season last year, just because I can't give up on the guy. Since his rookie year, I've been in on him. Same with Jameson Williams. I have been a firm believer in those players. And also Christian Watson, I have just been rostering a lot since his rookie year, and hearing all the hype bubbling up from those players in particular has been giving me just too much confirmation bias to where I just can't ignore the noise. Like, I like those players so much.
Are you worried? Are you worried about him learning how to run again? I heard that on the Sonic Truth with the Podfather and Theo and Alan Zaslowski. They're talking about he's learning how to run so he doesn't pull his hamstrings anymore.
Yeah, Christian Watson, that would be?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I get it's because there's something with his weight distribution and his legs or something like that, to where he's just got to figure out how to balance it all. So I'm sure he still knows how to run, but is maybe just, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a training off season for him, but I mean, it's just, the ceiling for that player is just unbelievable. But I guess we've seen that from a ton of different players throughout the NFL, that they fly so close to the sun and then it's kind of over like a flash. So it's definitely possible. But for now, I mean, attached to that Green Bay Packers offense, that ascending like that with Jordan Love and everyone, it's too good to be true, maybe, but I like it a lot. Same with Jelani Woods, same with Jameson Williams, just the offenses, the potential roles, the Colts tight ends you mentioned. It's a bit of an amalgamation with so many guys there. Last year was like over 800 yards and 11 touchdowns, though. And if one person stands out, that's a huge role. Huge role.
The one name on the show sheet that I want is Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
He doesn't need any hype. We need to keep Christian Kirk undercover, because I know people are excited about Brian Thomas. He caught a catch literally on air the other day, and I think it broke Twitter, X. And but I believe that Trevor Lawrence is still going to go with the guys he knows. He's still going to go with Evan Ingram, and he's still going to go with Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is going to be a mega value in PPR this year. Half point PPR, I don't know that he'll get enough touchdown volume to be really, really special, but like in full point PPR, Christian Kirk is going to be the wide receiver 3 that you get that's going to give you high-end wide receiver returns on that investment. I love Christian Kirk because he's been around, he's good, he's not sexy. He's the wide receiver 1 for an NFL franchise. I want him. I think he's one I would go after.
Yeah, I mean, really all the Jaguars, I think. You mentioned that Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously getting hype right now, but especially an underdog, I think all 3 of them could really be value, even going down to Gabe Davis. We've seen even Zay Jones have spike weeks on this offense. It's Trevor Lawrence can really distribute the ball. So, and Christian Kirk, being a guy that just a couple seasons ago was 18th in points per game with 14.2, had over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's, nothing to scoff at all. And yeah, I mean, it's going to take some time for Brian Thomas to get acclimated to the offense. It's going to take some time for Gabe Davis to get acclimated to the offense. So yeah, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk early in the season and throughout, really good investments, especially at their price tag right now. I mean, I think all the Jaguars, even Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, are you seeing him right now as a value too?
In seasonal leagues, I don't know, unless it's super flex, that I'm really big on Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
From a dynasty standpoint, I like to consider him Jared Goff with better hair. And that's no shade at Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a fine quarterback, but he needs to let it go. If he truly wants to be in that club of, and even the non-runners, right? But if he wants to be in that Burrow, Herbert, that level of quarterback, especially for fantasy and the real NFL, you got to make some things happen. Yeah. So I think this is a pivotal year for him. I do think he's a value in Superflex, but I'm not going crazy. And I'm a big Trevor Lawrence guy. He's our like sole remaining survivor of the class of 2021. He's it. We're going to talk about another guy here in a bit, but for the most part, he's the only one likely to get a big extension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's falling apart for all the quarterbacks in that class, and I like that you bring up that he kind of just has to let it go because I mean, his best season at Clemson, he had almost 600 rushing yards, and he hasn't even had 400 yet in the NFL. And there's more games. Like we've seen him be able to be mobile and just kind of let it loose and go crazy outside the pocket and stuff. We haven't seen that in Jacksonville yet. And perhaps, it could be just an NFL thing, right? Like you don't want your franchise quarterback to get hurt, but there's definitely some in between that we haven't seen from Trevor Lawrence. I do kind of agree with you there. He hasn't matched the hype, but I do think he's been good enough. And in Superflex and Dynasty, I do still think he's worth taking some shots on. Anything else about the OTAs before we move on to our last trending topic, sir?
No, I'm good with OTAs. I don't get too hyped for no contact shorts and helmet season.
Yo, you didn't buy the Quentin Johnston highlights last season?
How would that have worked out for you? I mean, not too good. So we were using PlayerProfiler rankings on the Dynasty Warzone, and we were talking about Quentin Johnston, who's the Dynasty wide receiver 77. You can't fall off the floor. Like if you get Quentin Johnston, and if he does anything, he's only going to go up in value. So I don't get too crazy for hype. What I'm looking for, and we can end the OTA topic on this. I'm just looking for rapport. I'm looking for guys who look like one of my biggest hits, and I'm going to age myself a little bit, but I remember watching Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler working together in Denver, and Brandon Marshall had not become Brandon Marshall yet. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, he is looking for this guy nonstop. And I picked Brandon Marshall in a bunch of leagues that year, and I won a bunch of money. So I don't necessarily look for the highlight catches or the feel-good stories or the bullet points on X. I just like, all right, last thing, and I know we got to talk about other topics, but this is one of my favorite things to do from a fantasy football standpoint. Create a separate Instagram account. So this way you can keep all the other stuff that you're into separate, and then just follow all 32 NFL teams. During OTAs, mini camp, training camp, your like the story that you just blast through at 100 miles an hour, it is absolute crack cocaine. You cannot put it down. You are blasting through this thing all day long. One of my absolute guilty pleasures is my second Instagram account where I follow no one else. I don't know that I have any followers, and I just watch highlights from the team.
Memphis, that might be the greatest just little nugget, little side thing that we can do I've ever heard. I've never thought of that. I run the Player Profiler Instagram account, and I've never thought I'm just going to make another account and follow the NFL teams to just see what's going on with OTAs. Great idea. Audience, go do that right now.
You can also do it with Twitter. You only follow all 32 beat reporters.
Yes.
And like Schefter and Ian Rappaport and Pelissero, you just follow those guys. No fantasy guys, because as a fantasy guy, you want to put your own spin on it.
Yeah.
You just want the news blurbs, and it doesn't get as washed out with other content. That's a pro tip.
That's awesome. Incredible stuff from Memphis right there, guys. Go have fun. Go create a new account. And you know what? Come up with a fun username too while you're at it. Have some fun with it. The next bit, the last bit we have that's kind of bubbling up right now revolves around Justin Jefferson. He just signed a mega contract. I have 2 questions for you. One, did he deserve it? Yes or no?
Well, deserve has nothing to do with it.
I know.
He earned the opportunity to be the next highest paid wide receiver. We know that Tyreek Hill had it for a minute, literally like minutes, and then here comes AJ Brown, and we knew that he was going to get it. And it was really a game of chicken between Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and Jamar Chase. Now that Amon-Ra St. Brown's been paid, guys like Jalen Waddle and Nico Collins have been paid, we knew it was only a matter of time. And I don't really like a team paying a wide receiver this much money because the NCAA keeps giving us so many good wide receivers. But this 4-year contract runs very nicely concurrently with the rookie deal of your quarterback. So right now, Justin Jefferson's making QB money. I would say in 4 years, Justin Jefferson will likely not be a Minnesota Viking if J.J. McCarthy is what people are hoping he's going to be. But I think in the short term, based on the fact that you have a good 4-year, runway with McCarthy's contract, you can afford to do this for a guy that's earned the money.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. Another great bit from Memphis Young. That's awesome. So the second part,
I did research, man. Well, I did the research. I think I'm going to show up on Wake and Take and not be ready to go.
Yeah, you can't.
Better have a take.
And the take is ready for you, as the next part of this question was: are you buying into JJ McCarthy, the JJ to JJ?
So here's how I'm approaching JJ McCarthy. In seasonal leagues, I'm trying to avoid him.
Okay.
Here's a guy that never really had 300 or more passing attempts in a game. And Kevin O'Connell, the head coach and play caller, has called about 600 plus. Mm-hmm. That's McCarthy's last 2 years of college, is essentially 1 year in Kevin O'Connell. And the last thing you want to do is put a team that's projected to finish last in their division out there to get destroyed. It didn't hurt Patrick Mahomes. It didn't hurt Carson Palmer. It is okay. And he's also the youngest quarterback in this draft class. He just turned 21 in January. It does him no good. And here's the thing. If Sam Darnold winds up stinking, which it hurts my soul to say, but he probably will, then you run the kid out there at Halloween and let him get some reps the way the Titans did Will Levis last year. But you're way better off to let him learn the pro game, let him learn the offense, and then hand it over to him next year.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's definitely the best path. I do think that you pay Sam Darnold. It was, I think, like $10 million guaranteed, right around there.
I think there was a handshake involved in it. And it's like the more watered down version of what happened with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. I think there was a gentleman's agreement, and they did this a couple of years ago with Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. There's this gentleman's agreement that, hey, yeah, we're going to draft a quarterback. And ironically, the Bears traded up for Justin Fields and still started Andy Dalton. I think there's going to be a thing where Sam went there knowing that Kevin O'Connell gave him a great opportunity to resurrect his career, a la what Baker Mayfield did last year with Dave Canales. And that's why I think you see him. But for Dynasty long-term, yeah, I love this, because when you get J.J. McCarthy going into year 2 next year, then you're going to get him with year 3 Jordan Addison, in the middle of his peak ultra prime Justin Jefferson, another year healthy TJ Hawkinson. That's going to be the time. So like in the middle of the season, if you see JJ McCarthy on a Contenders Dynasty roster and you can move somebody that can give him points now, like a Derrick Henry or whomever, do it. Stash JJ McCarthy. It'll pay dividends for your Dynasty roster.
Okay, so I love the strategy behind this. Let me ask you this. You're sitting on the clock right now. I know rookie drafts are pretty much far behind you. Were you drafting J.J. McCarthy at, like, say, the 1-6 in your super flex, like faced with like him, Brock Bowers, like Rome Odunze, Drake May? Or were you...
I wouldn't have taken him above Odunze.
Okay.
But if you're at the 107 and you're debating between Brock Bowers or JJ McCarthy, I'm fine with you going JJ McCarthy. It's only going to pay you dividends. Now, could he be the next Zach Wilson? Of course he could.
Yeah.
But he could also be the next Josh Allen. You don't know. I don't think he has the running ability of Josh Allen, but you get my point.
Yes.
Quarterbacks tend, and if he doesn't play, he's going to hold his value very, very well. So if you want to go as early as 107 and tight end premium super flex, I don't know that our buddy Theo would go for it. He would be advocating for Brock Bowers, but I'm fine with it there, especially if like at the 107, 108, your team should have finished like 4th in the league.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay. You probably got a couple of good quarterbacks. And it's totally okay for you to have a third quarterback that you may not use a bunch this year, because it could be maybe one of those 2 quarterbacks already on your roster is a Matt Stafford or an Aaron Rodgers or someone like that. And it would be nice to not have to rely on J.J. McCarthy, but know that he's there for the future of your dynasty roster.
Yeah, great way to put it. Go try to get J.J. McCarthy if you still can. Might be a little bit tough now. It's so weird that the fantasy does this.
Wait until week 4 when he's not playing.
Yeah.
Let Sam Darnold do what he did in Carolina. Let him get off to a fast start, have 3 or 4 good games. You can sell that other GM the narrative of he's not getting on the field this year. Yeah. I'll buy him for pennies on the dollar because right now it's still fresh. We saw him get drafted a month and a half ago. I would hold off, but I would be kicking tires around like week 3 or 4. Don't let it get too deep in the season and Sam Darnold turns back into Sam Darnold, and then all of a sudden you hear he's going to start. You've lost that window.
Yeah.
The strike point is somewhere between like week 3 and 5 for me.
That. I like that. I like that. Or maybe like week 2, maybe if you're getting finicky.
If you're aggressive.
Yes.
Aggressive play.
But I mean, you know what? I mean, we were talking about taking like Josh Dobbs over Brock Bowers at a certain point, or not Brock Purdy last year at a certain point. Like there was a weird part where Purdy was hurt again, and Josh Dobbs was starting a lot or had the one big game for the Vikings. Like people were like, "Whoa, we're going insane!" So the Vikings quarterbacks can score some points and get people excited. Sam Darnold might just do that. Memphis, before we go on and let you close out the show with a bunch of great takes that I'm excited to hear, I want to go ahead and play a little bit of an ad break here. Why don't we learn about the Player Profiler Dynasty Deluxe?
This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
I love that commercial. I love that commercial.
Matt is honestly kind of the commercial king. He's got a lot of good ones, and supposedly
go draft your ass off.
Yeah, they're also good. And supposedly, I buy it. I believe it. They're all one take. Like he just goes up there, nails that.
0% surprised.
Yeah, I know. Like seriously, like I buy it 100%. Man,
dude's a machine.
He is. He really is. Awesome stuff coming from the Podfather. Let's go Podfather. Let's go Podfather. So Memphis, in fantasy football, one of the greatest ways to find value isn't to specifically target a player. It's to find an offense that's a little undervalued, where you could see really a multiple amount of people becoming successful due to volume. And I ask you, what is one of those offenses that's perhaps a bit undervalued right now that we should be finding some value in?
For me, it was the Tennessee Titans. And I almost went Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
Because I like Dave Canales. I'm going to talk about him with my number 1 rookie flag plant guy. So I'm going to save the Canales love in just a second. But they don't have the weapons that Tennessee does.
Right.
I know Calvin Ridley's almost 30. I know DeAndre Hopkins is on the wrong side of 30 himself. But what really sold me on Tennessee is the offensive coordinator / head coach, Brian Callahan. First of all, he brought his dad, arguably one of, if not the best offensive line coach of all time. And I think that was cool of Cleveland to let him go work with his son. What a cool thing. Fathers and sons working together. It's pretty awesome. So and they drafted a lineman so that they're going to coach up this offensive line. They brought in Tony Pollard. I saw Brian Callahan. Now, mind you, part of this was Joe Burrow, but part of this was Jake Browning last year.
Right.
And this offense was top 10 essentially 3 years in a row. And last year they were 16 with Jake Browning playing a significant portion of the schedule. Jake Browning threw for 70% completion rate last year in his, I think it was 9 games starting. Yeah. So I think people are sleeping on this. Then you add in that Indy's got a pretty good offense that's going to score points. That's their division. We just talked about Jacksonville earlier in the show. And then, of course, everybody's bandwagon favorite, the Houston Texans. They're going to have to score points to keep up in this division. So people are sleeping on the Tennessee Titans offense. I love this. It's a hybrid of the Sean McVay by way of Mike, not Kyle, but Mike Shanahan offense. And if Will Levis connects in it the way that guys like Jordan Love have connected in this offense, we could see something really cool in Tennessee.
No, I'm with you 100%. I mean, the audience can attest to me here. This is one of the offenses I have been consistently pounding the table for. I just love it. I'm attacking everyone down to Tyler Boyd, sticking with Callahan from Cincinnati to Tennessee. It's super cheap. It's disgusting to think about it, but the familiarity is gonna lead to some targets and design plays. I'm not talking more than like 600 yards and 5 touchdowns here.
We didn't even bring up Traylon Burks,
right? Chigakonkwo, right? Like there's
it's not the most brand name. It's not the Vikings, right? No. Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawk, even Aaron Jones now. Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, the total will be better than the parts.
Right.
And I think the couple of guys that I would want to be on board, I like Tony Pollard. Yes. I love Will Levis in Superflex. Like if you're doing like a seasonal Superflex, as like a QB3, because if he blows up, you could win the league, and you could trade him. There's so many things you could do with Will Levis if he hits. I think this offense is going to be a lot of fun.
It is. It is. Take your shots everywhere, especially Will Levis. I think that's the main bullet point there. In Superflex, you've got to be trying to get Will Levis while he's so cheap right now. Because, he's going to be asked to throw the ball a ton. I think worst case scenario, he's Sam Howell, right? Get to a really good season, nearly 4,000 passing yards. And then you kind of have to move on. But, it is what it is. You have to do that sometimes. So we've gone from a sleeper offense now, Memphis. Who's just a player that's just a sleeper in general? Who are we sleeping on?
We are sleeping, and it feels weird to say that we're sleeping on Tank Dell.
Oh yeah,
but I think everyone's sleeping on Tank Dell. I think if you're a headline consumer, check out Player Profiler's news channel on YouTube if you haven't already. But if you're just a news consumer, then you may say, well, Memphis extended Nico Collins. That's true, and they traded for Stephon Diggs and redid his contract. Also true. But on the podcast, he's a podcaster too, just like us, CJ Stroud, Micah Parsons. They asked him to essentially draft or assign the other 10 players around him on an offense that he would want to play. Mm-hmm. He chose Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase. I believe it was Jamar. I know it was Devontae Adams for sure. Jamar Chase, and in the slot, he said Tank Dell.
I do remember that.
And it's like, that's the quarterback. That's how much faith and that's the kind of company that he thinks Tank Dell keeps. We forget how good Tank Dell was before he got hurt. Mm-hmm. And I know he's a small guy. He could get hurt quite a bit in his career, but I do believe that people are sleeping on him due to the Collins and Diggs news.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can really take shots on the entire Texans room, but especially the cheapest one that for some reason is also the youngest and the one that the quarterback hypes up the most. And last year he did so much with only a 20% target share, right? He had 700 yards and 7 touchdowns in 11 games with a 20% target share. That's not that high. He could very easily get that again. CJ Stroud loves him. He's healthy. The dude recovered from a gunshot wound and is out there killing it in OTAs right now, right? Like he's out there in the shorts against the air. Like what more do you want?
I don't know that you want to say gunshot wound and killing it in the same sentence, but phrasing. We'll say that.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing really well, and we're glad that he's recovered from the unfortunate gunshot wound. So you might be buying Tank Dell, but that's not your number one buy right now. I'm asking you, you've got to buy, you've got to sell. You're batting perfectly right now, right? Like I agree with your takes too much almost. So who you buying, who you selling?
Well, I'm buying Jaden Reed because
Okay.
when you're buying, you can't buy the Justin Jeffersons.
Mhm.
The acquisition cost just sets you back. If you don't get him in like your startup or you draft him as a rookie, it's really hard to get those premium pieces. What I'm looking for is who's the next guy that could maybe, if things break right, go in that way. And for me, that's Jaden Reed. If we look back in a year and he all of a sudden gets that Amon-Ra St. Brown, that Justin Jefferson style volume, that Michael Pittman volume, I'm not going to be surprised. He finished second in the team last year in targets. He had 92, and shockingly enough, Romeo Doubs had 96. So Romeo Doubs was the target leader last year. But it's easy to see where this number will go up for Jaden Reed. I think I know you like Christian Watson. I think he's the most talented guy in that receiving core. Ironically, fun fact, he graduated from Michigan State with my co-host Jerry Sinclair. They were literally like 8 people apart.
Nice.
And then I'm selling Dak Prescott.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't like Dak, but he's getting up there in age a little bit. He's had his injury issues. I still think he is within the range of outcomes for him to repeat his last year's QB3 overall performance. The thing is, I don't know that he gets extended in Dallas. And if he doesn't get extended in Dallas, where does he go? And if he goes there, is he going to perform at the level that he's performed at in Dallas? And that's a maybe. So like if maybe you're coming out of a contenders window in Dynasty, if you're doing seasonally, like I said, if you're doing underdog best ball mania, knock yourself out, get some Dak. But long-term in Dynasty, he's a guy that I'm looking to sell because he's really good. He's going to have a good year. And maybe you wait until in season because we know quarterbacks are going to get hurt. And maybe a contender will way overpay. But I think this is the last year that Dak's really Dak. There's your buy. Yeah. There's your sell.
Yeah, I mean, I'll slightly disagree on the buy with Jaden Reed just because I like Christian Watson so much. However, it is a good kind of, a hedging buy, if you will, because if Christian Watson doesn't pan out, Jaden Reed definitely will. I think that he definitely has the much higher floor there and the consistency that the Packers will like. The question is the ceiling. Can he become that true alpha? If Christian Watson can't stay healthy, I don't think Romeo Doubs gets that. I do think Jaden Reed has it in him. I'm just hoping it's Christian Watson. So I do think it's pick your flavor, either one. I don't think Jaden Reed is necessarily overvalued by any means. I still think he's at least, going to hold his value. So I'm not against it, but I just like Christian Watson.
Don't be afraid to take a dart throw on Dontavian Wicks either.
Yeah, we've been hearing good stuff from him.
Because when you have ambiguity, whether it be a backfield, whether it be a wide receiving group, always go with the cheapest option. So if you're not sure if you want to believe Jason with Christian Watson or me with Jaden Reed, maybe you just go out and get the cheapest one of the three and go get Dontavian Wicks, and maybe we'll both be wrong.
Yeah, and you know what? Before I talk about Dak Prescott, I don't think we're priced out as a dynasty community on Jordan Love at all, really. I think he's really, really easy to get right now for the season he just shown us, his age and the offense around him. Like, I think he's a really good buy right now. If you don't want to choose a wide receiver, just go get the quarterback.
But I want to hear your Dak take.
Yeah, so it's more of just a philosophy thing. But I mean, my favorite thing to do is just find discrepancy in micro markets and in dynasty and fantasy football in general. And one of them is just going to be the veteran quarterback market. And he is the only 30-year-old quarterback in the top 20. The only one. In fact, he's the only 30-year-old quarterback inside the top 25. So it's just when you see that type of discrepancy, you see him up at quarterback 12 on Player Profiler, probably about the same on Keep Trade Cut, and really anyone you ask. I think it's important to try to tier down. Say you want to stay with an older quarterback on a good offense. Hey, there's Jared Goff all the way down to quarterback 19 or 20 where you look, right? And you could get a nice little cherry on top. Or you could just go young. We talked about Trevor Lawrence earlier in the show. We just talked about Jordan Love. You could get Brock Purdy. You could probably get JJ McCarthy plus later in the season. Like I just think there's a ton of different outs right now with the quarterback market in general trending up the way it is. All these offenses getting so exciting. I don't want the 31-year-old quarterback on the last year of his contract. I don't really want that. So I agree with the sell. I agree with the sell wholeheartedly.
All right. Well, I'm glad we're in such agreement.
Wake and agree.
Yeah, just wake, and we're just going to tell you how much we like each other.
Who's your flag plant? And don't tell me, please don't tell me it's Ryan Flournoy.
Lord, no. You were in the draft house. My guy's Jonathan Brooks.
Oh, that's a good one too, though.
Here's the thing. People have been getting off their skis with these wide receivers. Now, listen, and I play a ton of tight end premium superflex. It's just my preferred format. So I have no problem if you're taking, again, all the way up to J.J. McCarthy at 8. But if you need a running back, and I got to feel like a lot of dynasty rosters always seem to need a running back, why wouldn't you want Jonathan Brooks? And I don't think it's crazy to say he could be going top 5 in tight end premium and superflex leagues had he not tore his ACL in November. He's already been running. I was looking at news reports. He started running back in March. He should probably get off to a slower start to the season, but that's totally okay. And again, we talk about these offenses. I don't coach worship. I know the Podfather's big not coach worship guy, but I do respect Dave Canales. I saw what he did last year to make Rachaad White the RB4 overall on the season. And I like Rachaad White, but from an athletic standpoint, I believe Jonathan Brooks is a way better athlete than Rachaad White. Yeah. And Dave Canales, on top of being super handsome, he's pretty good offensive coordinator. I mentioned that Tennessee edged out Carolina to be the offense. I love the talent. I love the player. I love the size. He's like 6 foot 216. He's a big dude, and he's a 3-down back. And do not be surprised if in 12 months from now we're looking at a guy like Jonathan Brooks in that top 5 with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson, because I think the kid can be that special. That's my flag plant guy.
I love the flag plant. I don't hate it at all. I'm with you step for step in terms of where I've been drafting him. I'm taking him over, of course, the Ladd McConkey's and Brian Thomas's and Keon Coleman's.
If you take Xavier Worthy or Keon Coleman over Jonathan Brooks, you get exactly what you deserve.
Yeah,
because you could easily get a wide receiver in the second round that may not have quite as much upside. But if I walk away with Jonathan Brooks and I don't even have any ADP pulled up, but like a different wide receiver, give me his teammate, give me Xavier Leggett. I don't care. I want Jonathan Brooks. That's my guy.
I love it. I mean, they traded up to get him. Dave Canales, like you said, he features the back. We saw it in Seattle even with Kenneth Walker, and then we saw it with Rachaad White. I mean, I like it. I like it a lot. Even Trey Benson. I think that both of those running backs are undervalued, but I think that definitely Jonathan Brooks has the clear path to being a true workhorse running back this season. I like the call. You're doing too well, Memphis. Let's see if you can take me away, make me not like you anymore. Are we just way too in sync here? Give me your hot take.
Well, maybe we'll have to create like a new podcast we can do together. So on these very airwaves and simulcast on the Dynasty Warzone airwaves, on this very network last year, I said, and it's on my Twitter timeline somewhere, I'll repost it, that Justin Fields would not progress as a passer and would not be a Chicago Bear in 2024. Here we are. Mm-hmm. And my hot take for 2024 is going to go back to the Justin Fields well. And Justin Fields will become the starter in week 6, and Arthur Smith will make him a better quarterback. And Justin Fields will become a bridge starter through 2025 and is a smoking hot buy right now. Ryan Tannehill took over for Marcus Mariota after 6 games. And Ryan Tannehill came in and played 43 games under Arthur Smith. Do you know what his completion percentage was during those 43 games?
It's got to be high. What, 75?
67.3 for a guy who's a 64.3, about 5% better with Arthur Smith. 76 passing touchdowns. But you ready to have your mind blown? This is the mind-blowing stat. In 43 games, Ryan Tannehill rushed for 18 touchdowns. Now, put an athlete the caliber of Justin Fields in that offense. I think you're buying Justin Fields from disappointed GMs in Dynasty. I think you're buying cheap on Arthur Smith because everyone hates him. But the numbers don't lie. We can have bias against Justin Fields. We can have bias against Arthur Smith. If you just look at the data of what he was able, and even Desmond Ridder for a time, and Tyler Heineke, I'm telling you, you give him an athlete, because I won't go as far as call him a quarterback yet, but do not be surprised if the Justin Fields fans aren't back. And they're like, because the Justin Fields bros will be like, we're so back, baby. We're 100% back. That's my bold take. I think he's going to be a nice bridge starter because, as everyone knows, Mike Tomlin does not have losing seasons. And because of that, they really won't be in the mix to get a guy like that. And I just think Russell Wilson's buns. That dude's done. So that's my bold take. I love buying distressed assets. I tend to zig when everyone else is zagging. And even if you buy now, if any of this, even like 50% of this comes true, like I said, the Justin Fields bros are back and they're going to inflate his value and you're going to be able to flip him for pure profit in season. So I never didn't like Justin Fields. I didn't like the hype and the expectations because I didn't think he could live up to them. Those have come back to earth now. And the same thing for Arthur Smith. He can be a horrible head coach, but he's a pretty good offensive coordinator if you just look at the data. Yeah. So that makes Justin Fields my smoking hot take for this episode.
Memphis, I have really unfortunate news. I am with you again. I just can't quit Justin Fields. I have been screaming from the rooftops to be going out and buying Justin Fields. I have a little football thing back here just filled with his rookie cards that I'm putting my own money to because I just think it's going to happen. All it takes is Russell Wilson to go out there and throw one interception, and then you just start hearing the chants and the terrible towel spins for Justin. And then he goes out there and he runs for a 70-yard touchdown, and it's just over. He's the franchise quarterback potentially, and the Steelers fans go wild. Fantasy football markets go wild. Everyone's throwing their firsts at him again, and everyone that bought him right now is just so happy. So I'm with you, Memphis. I'm basically with you. We'll go, 90% of the way?
I'll drink to that.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers indeed, my man.
That was fun. That's some good stuff, Memphis. Well, guys, Memphis, obviously, if you like Wake and Take, you're going to like Memphis. Great stuff going on. Thank you for guesting here, and keep up the great work with the War Zone. Love that show and love what you're bringing here to Player Profiler. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you right now? Go ahead and plug your stuff.
They're here. You can find it on Player Profiler. We do have our own YouTube channel. We'll get into doing a bonus episode on our own channel, but we have some guys that do content on our Dynasty Warzone YouTube and podcast channels. We theoretically do, not theoretically, we actually do 3 shows a week, 2 to 3 shows a week. We just have some extra hosts. So you're always going to find me if you're a Player Profiler subscriber. Can't miss me. I'm every Sunday. We're in the archives. But if you're looking for more takes and to get the chance to meet some other interesting people via podcast, check out the Dynasty Warzone. Same place as you check out Player Profiler. It's that simple. I've been venturing away from X, and I got to tell you, it's been good. When I go, I don't get all like agitated and worked up.
So you're just on Instagram now with your fake with your
no. I mean, on Instagram for baseball stuff and other sports and UFC and the gym and other stuff that I'm into on top of fantasy football. And it's just like, I don't know what it is about X that makes people want to be so negative, but man, they find it and they are. So I've just been a little bit less in the Twitter streets.
I don't blame you. How are you going to take away a Bird logo? We're Bird fans here on Wake and Take, and they just went with a stupid X. So we're not fans either of that, even though we're there. You can find me there, of course, guys. And of course, still follow Player Profiler on Twitter and everywhere else you can find social media. Memphis, again, thank you again for joining. Incredible show. We'll have you again sometime, and you're going to have to tell Jerry that this was fun so I can get him on here as well. And audience, You have a fantastic Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.